for
Okay.
your...
All right, it's call to order. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Here. Ms. Ruska? Here. Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Ms. Sierra? Here. Ms. Towner?
Here.
Ms. Bayless? Here.
Here. Okay, we'll start right off with the recognitions.
Yes. Wow, got some good ones. Girls basketball, Brenna Loftus. Brenna Loftus has been the face of the girls basketball program at RB for the last 4 years. She will leave Riverside Brookfield with numerous individual accolades, records, and honors. Brenna led the Bulldogs to a 10-4 record during a condensed season and has surpassed 2,500 points this season. She shattered long-lasting school records with 48 points in a game and 22 free throws made in a game. In addition, Brenna set school records for points scored in a game, season, and career, field goals made in a game, season, and career, and free throws made in a game, season, and career. She was named first team All-State by the IBCA, Illinois Basketball Coaches Association, and the News Gazette. She was also invited to play in the IBCA All-Star Game, and she was named the Suburban Life Player of the Year. Brenna was voted to the Metro Suburban All-Conference team for 4 consecutive years and was the most valuable player of the conference 3 years in a row. Earning All-State recognition is a difficult task, and Brenna did it for 2 consecutive years. Brenna also put the success of the team at the forefront. She led the Bulldogs to an 84-25 record during her 4 years on varsity, 2 conference titles, and a regional championship. Brenna Loftus has left a lasting mark on the girls' basketball program at RB, and we wish her the best of luck at Washington University in St. Louis next year. Thank you for being a great example of what it means to be a Bulldog on and off the court. And I just would add, like, imagine if she didn't have a shortened, right, there was a shortened season this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, imagine that. So, kudos to Brenna. Good job. Is Brenna here? Come on up here. Thank you.
Brenna, congratulations. Thank you very
Good
much.
luck in St. Louis. Good luck. Are you playing ball for them?
Sorry?
Are you playing ball for them?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Excited about that. Thank you so much.
Very exciting.
Thank you
Well,
for representing the high school so well for 4 years,
You've
Brenna.
earned it, honey. You worked hard.
Thank you.
Okay, now, cheerleading. In a season filled with adversity and numerous guidelines to adhere to, the varsity cheerleading team overcame each obstacle with a champion mindset. These student athletes established several goals to the start of the season and demonstrated an unwavering work ethic to achieve each goal. The team captured their 3rd consecutive conference championship title, qualified for the IHSA State Series, and advanced to the state finals. Congratulations to the RBHS Girls Competitive Cheer Team. Members include head coach Peyton Scott.
Peyton's here.
You guys can come up in here, right? Assistant coach Brittany Barrett. Squad members Coco Eldape, Isabel Anaya, Eleanor Appi, Isabel Areola. If I call your name, come on up. Madison Bernal, Tiffany Boone, Chloe De Lorenzo, Darby Gohan, Ariana Gonzalez, Ellie Lavity, Cameron Calanterna, Brianna Kissick, Emma Kovac, Stephanie Ortiz, Brooke Schwarty, Mia Schwarty, Juliana Speziali, Alexis Smith, and Hannah Smith.
Let's give them a second to get all their...
Yes, everybody will wait till you get up here, and then we would like to take a picture as well. Is that it? Nope. Coach, you want to scoot down just a little? Girls, so we can get everybody. Anybody want to take, any parents want to take any pictures? Now would be the time once they all get up here.
Everyone, does any captains have anything to say about this year?
This was a great year. Even though it was really short, I had a really great time. I'm sure everyone else did too. And thank you for everyone's participation this year. And yeah.
All right, guys, we'll go in here. 3, 2, 1. Got it. Very nice.
Good job.
Let's hear it. Thank you.
Okay, that's
awesome.
is it for student recognition.
All right, we'll go to the Student Association report.
Hi, ladies. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. My name's Catherine Glave. I'm the exec board president this year for Student Association.
I'm Lily Favela, and I am the secretary for Student Association.
So just give me a second to get my notes. Sorry, super
No, it's
unprofessional.
fine.
I understand.
Oh, yeah, okay. So SA has continued doing the announcements. They are supposed to be shown during our second hour classes. The videos are about a minute to like 30 seconds long. Catherine and I usually do them. A couple of other people on the exec board does them. We just give the students like a recap of like what they should be hearing on the announcements, just so they can be informed still and stuff like that. But yeah.
Since our last appearance at the board meeting, we had another blood drive with totaling another 32 pints donated. So that's 64 total this year, which is pretty exciting. That we were still able to get that many through the pandemic because we had a very limited number of donation spots, and like always, there are things that come up, people that can't donate. We're quarantined, a very difficult year, but with those 64 pints donated, that's 192 lives saved, so we're super proud of that.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And last week was our Spring Spirit Week. So we had Pajama Day, Hat Day, Sports Day, and then we also had Crazy Blue and White because we had Friday off, and that was super exciting. And we also did our annual Pop Top collection during that week, and we were able to collect 102,000 Pop Tops, which is about 81 pounds, which is super exciting. And all of those will be donated to the Ronald McDonald House, just right by the Loyola Hospital.
So we have elections for next year, and they're actually starting tomorrow. Voting ends at 3:05 tomorrow, so the students will get emailed their ballots, and then they would have to take the survey, and it's due at 3:05. And then all of the students will get results on Thursday, April 29th. And then, so they would get an email for the ballots for their class, and then they would also get ballots for the exec board.
And then just some plans for the end of the year. We have our one more Spirit Day. We always do May the 4th. Super fun. We do like Star Wars themed or space themed, whatever people have. We have notes of acknowledgement for our staff. We do that every quarter where students can write notes to different staff members at RB, and we distribute those. So I believe that we decided this morning that that will be the last week of school, just so we don't have AP tests going on. And then we also are already getting ready for freshman orientation next year. Although Lily and I will not be part of that.
Sadly, but
We are
Welcome to come
both
back.
Yep.
No, you take a pass? Okay.
Yeah, we're both moving on, so thank you for a great 2 years. And I know you all miss us so much.
You will.
But yeah, thank you for your time and
Yeah, thank you so much.
Ladies,
Yeah.
before you close tonight, senior activities, you guys taking part in that? Are you getting good feedback from your classmates? I know Mr. Mannon's gone above and beyond to try to put some things together, so.
Yeah, so I think we both participated in it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time spending time with my friends, and I mean, like, it was just a good time for, like, relaxation and not just worrying about school all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, I feel like we all need it, and we needed that day.
We really needed it.
Especially, I loved the canvas painting. I thought it was so relaxing, and it was beautiful that day. So I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, it was just nice to see everyone because not everyone's going to school, and just nice to be with groups of people that, you know, we don't get to see as much as we used to, and also with, like, the senior tailgate was a really great success. I know people are super excited about that. And I know seniors are very, very excited about prom. So
Seniors only.
Seniors only, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, just very thankful for the opportunities that we've been given for the end of the year.
Well, good. Well, we're doing the best we can to try to make it as normal as possible. So
Thank you again.
thank you for your positive
Thank you.
attitude.
Thank you so much.
Any questions from the board for Student Association?
This is the last time we're gonna see you this year, right?
Yeah.
So Good luck.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work, girls. To the entire executive board, thank you.
Thank you. We'll let them know.
Thank
We are
you.
very involved, so our other members could not be
Yeah.
here, but they all send their best as well.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, this is time for visitor statements. Do we have any visitor statements? Okay, and then we'll skip right there. Discussion items, informational items, COVID-19 transition.
Mary Ann, if you put up the data matrix that was updated on Monday, as the board can see, we are in a safe place to be operating with students on campus 4 days a week. We have out of the IDPH 5 matrix, only 1 is in substantial, 2 are in moderate, and then 2 are in minimal transmission. And then for our local area, positivity rates in minimal transmission, while cases for a new per 100,000 is in substantial. But we are in a safe place to be continuing with students 4 days a week. At this point in time, there are no new updates from the state or local governments, anything from the IDPH or the ISBE. The one thing as superintendents that we are continuing to wait for is just some final guidance on the opening of school next year in regards to if they're going to, what type of paperwork will be required for any type of remote option. And right now, what we're hearing from the State Board of Education is that all students will be expected to be back in school next school year, with the exception of someone that cannot be vaccinated and has a severe medical condition. And obviously, they'll have to go through a series of paperwork to document that. But we're waiting to see if there's any final direction on that, or if that's up then for the districts to implement with their legal counsel. So that's one thing we're waiting on from the state. CLIA certification. So the administration, in conjunction with the nurse's office, we finalized and we are officially CLIA certified. What does CLIA certified mean? It's basically a clinical laboratory amendment waiver, and so basically that gives us the ability to conduct testing on site. And so the next step that we are working on is getting our hands on some of the antigen tests that are free from the health department, the county health department, so that we have the flexibility to test students or staff members on site that are experiencing symptoms or feel they may have been exposed. We've discussed about if we have all of this completed before the end of the year, trying to maybe run a pilot on our high-risk sport, like maybe wrestling or lacrosse. The IDPH said that is one recommendation an additional recommendation you can follow. So we're in the process of completing that. We've actually got our certificate. We're just our portal is set up, so now we're waiting to get. We got a standing order from a doctor, so we're just waiting to get. It said it takes 7 to 10 days to get confirmation on our submission of tests and how many we're requesting, and then getting them delivered. So we're waiting on that. But we did meet with the nurse today so we're staying in the loop. We're going to try to get from Goward School District 62, who we worked with. That's my kid's school district, and we worked with their superintendent to follow some of the paperwork and things they're completing. So we're trying to get some tests so that our nurse can practice. So we're going to be looking for some volunteers to let our nurse do some practice testing. And so that should hopefully be happening sometime maybe later next week. Vaccinations information has been posted to the website and district social media outlets to announce all the vaccination sites available for residents 16 years and older.
There was one this past weekend in Brookfield and in North Riverside. I believe there's one more coming up in May in Brookfield, so we're trying to update that slide on the website to keep our students and families informed. The more people that receive vaccinations, the easier it will be for us to resume some normalcy in the school year next year. As stated previously, the rentals, the district has begun accepting rental applications and requests on days when there's no school events. We'll still follow COVID safety protocols, but we are beginning to open our building to some rental events. And my last note here is on the 2021-22 school year. Communication from the high school will begin to going out the first week of May to parents and students, informing them that they should be preparing for a full return to school in August. I did inform the staff of that this Monday at a staff meeting, and the communication from Dr. Freitas, when we start putting out our residency communication, will also be coming out that students should be preparing for a return to a traditional school year. This entails regular school day bell schedule, lunches on campus, extracurricular activities after school. That's been the push from the state over the last month to 2 months, and so that will be our push as an administration to continue to get back to our traditional school day. The administration and staff are discussing and planning for next year, and we'll be using some funds we received from the government to provide additional resources. I touched on that with the board last week, and I'll touch on that again in my finance report later in this meeting. Again, one of the only things we're waiting on is preliminary information on the remote option, but there has been one option that's been brought to West Cook. West 40, I believe. There's Leiden, Ridgewood, Elmwood Park, Lyons Township, Proviso, Morton, RB, I think I said Ridgewood already. So I said there's about 7 or 8 high schools. And so what they're trying to establish at West Cook, which is our intermediate service center, like our regional office of education, is a remote option so that students that do have medical issues and cannot be vaccinated, cannot return to school, and have to have a full remote option. They're talking about setting up a remote school basically for all the high school students to earn credit so that the actual high schools can focus on the in-person instruction. So that may be one option that we'll be presenting our students. I'm sure some families won't be happy that it may not be classes with RB teachers, but at this point, we're anticipating, a large, if not a majority of all of our students returning. And so we will have to have some alternative options for that remote option. So we're working with the Regional Office of Education on that. And I know Ms. Lindquist is working with instructional coaches for if there's any if there is a real low number of students, if there's a possibility to group them into one section and see if they can take a course or two here while also being on the West 40 remote. It's called an ALA program. So we're trying to work through those details. We had another meeting on Monday with West 40, and so we'll provide more information as that becomes available. So I would anticipate the communication coming out from Dr. Freitas will just be echoing that families and students should be preparing to return for a full-time school day, and the paperwork and the process for the remote option will be rigorous. And so Dr. Freitas, as soon as we get that process up and running, we need to get that out to families. And I know you're attending some of those meetings with me as well. So, but the good news is I think the sooner we can start communicating with families about the full return next year, the better. And if there's no other, one question, and I think I addressed that in the superintendent report about the plans for 21-22. Are there any other questions from the board on the superintendent side before I turn it over to Dr. Freitas?
So do we have any idea how many you anticipate? Because you have almost 600 kids that won't be vaccinated because they're under 16, right?
Yeah, it's not that if you're not vaccinated. That's not one of the requirements that the state has put out, is that you are have a severe medical condition that what you cannot attend, cannot be on campus for in-person learning, and
Maybe I read that wrong.
Right. So it's going to be a health plan. There's going to be some steps you're going to have to go through with not only your local physician, but also through the paperwork through the regional office and through the high school.
It's also very likely that vaccination eligibility will expand lower than
age 16 by the
They're
fall.
saying Pfizer could be this summer for 12 and up.
Yeah,
If that's
so
the
that-
case, that would help us
If
significantly.
that's the case, I think it'd be great to do, I think some of the communication around vaccine eligibility that's come out from the school has been helpful.
Right.
But I think we want to be cautious. I don't think we want to be pushing back, the vaccine younger before the science is ready. Right now, the science is safe with 16.
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying that
Right.
there's pending approval for 12 and up, that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
But families might not rush their 12-year-olds to get a vaccine, and so we don't want to make that the criterion for coming back to school.
No, we're not making that the
No.
criterion. No,
No,
it's
I
not a
mean,
mandatory vaccination
Yeah.
policy yet. I don't think that's what the suggestion was. I think it was
No, I
just,
just think
it will help.
the pool of those eligible for vaccination will be larger in the coming weeks.
Dr. Freitas, just a
Fingers
COVID
crossed.
update
Yes, I hope so.
from the high school side?
Good evening, honorable board members. All right, so RB, we're still accepting students to attend in person. So if you want to come to school, if you changed your mind yesterday and you want to come tomorrow, you can come. We just ask that you contact the main office for any additional information. Guys, to address the academic challenges caused by COVID-19, we have created the following intervention for the upcoming school year and some this year as well. So we're going to be doing a pull-out English reading and math. What is that? So pull-out support means that a certified staff member pulls a student out of an elective or PE course to have them work in a smaller group setting during the school day. They work on gaps identified by their teachers and the progress monitoring tool. Our student services team is tracking and working with seniors in dangers of failing courses. They're following up, making sure they're communicating with the students and with the family members and seeing their students. Information has been posted on our website for in-person summer school, credit recovery courses, academic workshops, bridge programs will be free for all students. In regard to social emotional learning and the well-being of our students, we know that is coming. So we have been delivering SEL lessons building-wide on Mondays in PE 9 and English 9 classes, freshman classes. In addition, we will be partnering with Sarah's Inn, Pillars, and Satchel for future SEL programming. These partnerships will focus on helping parents support the mental well-being of their child, so we're engaging parents. We'll be surveying the students to see what SEL supports are needed. We're engaging the students, and we're providing training to our social workers who may deal with families who have suffered with everything that COVID-19 has brought. So we're engaging our parents, engaging our students, and supporting our staff so we can do well with social-emotional learning.
Can I interrupt quickly and
Yes.
ask a few questions? So on the SEL lessons, those are for freshmen.
Correct.
I know one of the comments that we've heard is about, what about the sophomore, junior, senior? So can you talk a little more about how you're targeting, I think is that the Sarah's in Pillars and Satchel?
Sure,
Is
yeah,
that
so
what-
we've been, focusing right now, on the freshmen, but we'll be doing tier 1 to engage as many students as possible. So it'll be, all the parents of our grade levels will be welcome. We'll be supporting our social workers who touch base with students from all grade levels, as well. We'll be serving all the students to see what they need. So our counselors and our social workers are still gonna be engaging all students from all grade levels. We've just been systematically doing lessons with the freshmen.
Okay, that's helpful. I think that's good to know that there's
So, and
options for
I think we
everybody.
want to also verify that because we talked about going 5 days a week, but we're not because of the learning and the extra outreach to teachers and students that we're doing on Mondays.
Correct,
For the
yes,
rest of the year.
we'll be doing
think
so
we
for the
wanna
month
note
of
that.
May, a lot of our professional development that deals with executive functioning skills and SEO will be happening, on Mondays as
And
scheduled.
it's important that we do that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to verify.
Activities and athletics, the spring season is wrapping up, and the summer season, the first ever summer season, is underway via a modified IHSA calendar. We have seen a slight increase in the number of students having to quarantine due to close contact on the IDPH guidelines, but right now, things have been calm. Athletic contests are being live streamed on 2 platforms, and a limited group of spectators are allowed at home contests. Please contact the athletic department for more details. Guys, I try to do streaming as well, but I want to enjoy the game, so maybe you catch me for the first 5 minutes. I know there's dozens of family members that are streaming as well, but if you want, remember, we stream through the nfhsnetwork.com. That is the National Federation for High Schools, and we also stream through RBTV. Okay, and of course, friends and family that are there stream as well. For more information, email the coaches, because sometimes they set up kind of athletes to stream the events as well. School coach and operations, in-person attendance for fourth quarter. So for 2 weeks ago, April 12th through the 16th, we averaged 438 students per day. And for last week, April 19th through the 22nd, we averaged 450 students per day. Lunches are still grab and go, available every day as students leave. District office right now is working to provide this service throughout the summer. In May, all of our teaching staff will be trained on executive functioning skills. This training will help our teachers prepare and plan for how to best teach key executive functioning skills such as time management and organization within their curriculum to best support students' transition back to a full day of school. Additionally, several of our teachers will be receiving training in co-teaching, where you have a special education educator paired up with a regular content educator to teach. This is needed to help close the achievement gap and to allow for teachers to plan on how to best work together to benefit our Bulldogs. COVID-19 vaccinations are available in Brookfield and North Riverside. Information has been posted on our website. Graduation will be held outdoors at our Canelli Athletic Complex, AKA known as the stadium, on May 28th at 6 p.m. Students will be issued 2 tickets. Families will be issued 2 tickets. May 29th will be the makeup day in case of inclement weather. And prom will be held on May 27th at the Hyatt Lodge in Oak Brook. So seniors, you got your prom. We're gonna do it right. Guys, make sure you follow all the safety expectations, okay? If we do it, we should have a good graduation and a good prom and a good, culmination of the school year.
Ms. Smithan, there was one question submitted, and I believe related to this, the board need to take any action regarding the prom venue. I don't believe in my tenure we have taken that because it's paid out of a student activity account, and the sponsors work to secure that venue, and it's cost neutral to the district, so it doesn't come out of a board
Correct.
actual account. But is there anything that the board needs to take action on that you're aware of? Okay. And those were all the questions on the principal's report, on the COVID report. Dr. Frass will present his principal report a little later in the meeting.
I have 2 questions on what was said. One is, summer school registration started?
We are working on it right now. We officially open in May.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's not ready to go yet?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
We're still just, some minor details.
Sure,
we're almost there.
No,
We're almost there. We want to
just-
get it right before we put a product out.
100%. I just was wondering.
Yeah.
And then, is there gonna be a remote option for graduation? Like, is it gonna be streaming on RBTV?
We will be streaming, correct.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be streaming the graduation. Yep.
Because I know it's been 4 tickets in the past, right?
Yes, it's been more than 2 in the past.
I mean, I know everybody understands why, right? That's not the issue, but just, I'm sure there are some people who are like, oh.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit more about the pullouts in English, reading, and math, how they're being identified and how that works?
Sure. So next year, we're going to be using the STAR assessment. We're going to give the student this assessment that lets us know where they're doing in reading and in math. And right now, we're kind of working on, the cutoff score. So once we identify a certain score or a certain skill, then we will be pulling those students out of an elective or PE class. We're not going to take them out of their math class, right? We're complementing math. We're complementing English, But, we may take them out, out of their elective and PE class. I know they're important, but that's just an opportunity to work on a little more academics. Yep, and so we'll use the STAR monitoring tool to identify the gaps, and then we'll work with the teachers to make sure they review those gaps and help students, develop those skills that are needed for success.
And that's next year that the STAR monitor
Correct.
goes into effect? So
Yep.
what's being used now?
So right now we're using our local assessments, of course, teacher-created assessment. We're using the the SAT, of course. So that's what currently we're using right now. Yep.
We're doing pullouts now, correct?
I'm sorry?
We're doing pullouts now, though, correct? With the
We
math
have
and
done some, yeah. Next year, of course, will be, it's definitely more detailed, more structured, but we have done, of course, pullouts, yeah.
Okay.
That's not new, this is just a new intervention, correct. But we do have a new monitoring tool, that will help us identify those gaps. The tool is new.
All right, we'll go and move to student advisors.
Michael Lilly, any report to share?
Oh, isn't that further down that we have a report? Well, because I was confused because there's two agenda items. That's the only one.
That's just a discussion item. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I think that's why they're.
Okay. All right, additional discussion items. At this point in the meeting, the Board of Education members can request to add additional items. Okay. President's report, I don't have one. Student advisors report. Now you. I'm glad we waited there, Michael.
Hold on.
Step it up, buddy. I hope you wrote something between then and now.
All right. I mean, a lot of what Mr. Freitas said was something that I would say, but I just wanted to say that we're excited for graduation. The tailgate was really fun. I think that was a great last RB football game celebration for us. I also think school is starting to feel more normal. I feel like more students are showing up. I'm seeing familiar faces now that I wouldn't see 3 months ago. And I think that the full return in the fall is really good because younger students like my brother need that. I think that just giving them the experience that we've had the first 3 years, I think is really important. And then the pullouts that Dr. Freitas said, I think those are really good for recovering and your SEL plan. I always love to see SEL.
Okay, I think that all the senior stuff is very, very good. I was at the tailgate on Friday. It was super fun. I loved, catching up with everyone, and especially those who I haven't seen since last year. And it was just a great way to bring everyone together for one last football game, since we used to always, gather for Friday night football games, and the student section used to be so crazy, so we kind of brought that back a little bit. We had...
The food was great.
The food was really good, actually, especially the chips. The chips were
I liked all of it.
But yeah, so that was fun. And then the senior activity day was a very good time. Like they said, the canvas painting was definitely the best. I also liked rock painting. There was a lot of different types of painting. And then I also did Special Olympics. So I'm looking forward to the second day of that, and I'm sure everyone is too, because everyone who I talked to yesterday after senior activity day really enjoyed it, and it was exactly what we needed to get a break from school. So yeah, I think everything's really coming together for the seniors. We all have our AP tests coming up next month. Or next week,
Next week. Yeah, not next month, next week.
But it is next month, technically.
Yeah. We need you ready Monday. We need you ready Monday, right?
But, so, we're all kind of stressed because of those. So it's nice to kind of clear our minds for, a couple hours with our friends. But I agree with everything Michael said about getting everyone back to school next year, since the freshmen haven't had that, normal high school experience, and the sophomores have barely had it. They had it for one semester. So it's definitely, an experience every kid should go through or have the opportunity to go through. So I'm happy that they're going to get back to that. And SEL is very important. I hope you find a way to incorporate it more so for the upper grade levels rather than just the freshmen, because I think that mental health is a problem for all ages, but, if you can work that into other grade curriculums, that would be better. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. On the superintendent's report.
Curriculum Advisory Council, Lauren Ramona Towner, no update. A meeting will be scheduled for May to discuss new course proposals and starting to discuss the foreign language offering and program improvements. Facilities Advisory Council, which is Tom Jacobs and Wes. No update. A meeting will be scheduled in May to discuss the minor projects that are scheduled for this summer, which is basically the railings, and then we have some landscaping work and some minor in-house work, but no major construction or roofs this year. Finance Advisory Council, we did have a meeting on Tuesday, April 20th. Specific documents and figures will be included in Kristen's, or are included in Kristen's report. Current fiscal year status, and where we are projecting for June 30th. I mean, we're in a good position right now, better than what we anticipated, and a lot of that's because of the additional federal funding we've received. So that has been helpful. We've had some expenditures that are we're starting to see a trend that they're coming in lower than predicted. So that's also helped offset some of the property tax collections that we have not received. Kristen will have in there we discussed a COVID financial tracking document, which you'll see in the Assistant Superintendent's Report, but it just gives you an idea of how much money the school district has expended during the pandemic. You know, when you start putting numbers to some of the services you're providing, just like lunch service, and seeing that we spent over $500,000, you know, towards providing our families lunches throughout this pandemic since last March. It really does put some things in perspective. The good thing is a majority of these will be covered either by reimbursement or a portion of reimbursement and some of those federal dollars, so that's helped. The FY22 budget process, we just started to discuss the budgeting process with our departments and building level administrators. We talked as an advisory council about the projected $1 million we're supposed to receive in FY22 at some point in FY22 from the federal government, and be dispersed from the state as our third ESSER payment. And we talked a little bit about this last week, and we talked about the additional FTE to help get any class sizes that were at or near the cap, below the cap, to ensure that we can open with full classes next year. We talked about SEL initiatives. You know, it's funny that Lily and Michael mentioned that. One of the things we talked about at the finance advisory was the possibility of maybe adding on some additional psych services. We purchased our psych services from LADSI, so possibly looking at purchasing some additional psych services to help with some interventions, as well as some data analysis on that learning loss. We also talked about maybe using a behavior interventionist. We think, I mean, it's obvious we're going to have, you know, 40 to 50% of our students have not been back on campus in over a year. So you're going to have some students that are going to experience some transition issues, as well as even just issues acclimating back to the classroom, and teachers acclimating back to having, you know, a full group of students in their class. So we are going to look to dedicate some of those funds to additional, you know, psych services, some behavior interventionists, support services, RAP services for students who maybe are not identified as special education students but are having a hard time transitioning back. So those are a couple things that we're looking at. And then obviously instructional tech and building safety, some additional para-educators. I think we're looking at about 4 additional para-educators to be coming in. So we had a good discussion, and we'll begin to elaborate on those ideas and concepts as we move through the budget process here in May and June. Personnel advisory, no update. The building administration is conducting interviews now for certified vacancies. Policy Advisory Council, no update. Kristen, Mike Connors, Bridget Wilmont are working on our SOPA policy. Again, that's our Student Online Personal Protection Act. So any software that we're using that collects student data or student information, you have to have formal agreements that align with the Personal Protection Act. And so we've been working closely, which you'll probably see some uptick in legal bills, because every one of these contracts we've been sending to Nikki at Frantic. Now, what they have started to put in place, if there's other districts that have already got a SOPA agreement with a vendor, there's been some type of collaboration consortium where then we could use that same agreement that other schools have identified. So that's helped expedite the process a little bit, but it is still a pretty thorough process.
Yeah, make sure you take advantage of that. We've been able to piggyback off a lot of them, right? And then my only question, I look forward to the full report, but I just started planning today for my teacher training on it, right? So that staff understands the full depth of the law, right? Because a lot of them go off, and at least at my level, and create an account here and there, and they go outside of what we sanction as a district. and they need to understand the gravity of those decisions, right? At the, that kids' personal information is equal to currency on the web. Whatever, currency can mean a lot of things, right? Money, other things, right? So they just need to really be made aware of that.
So we did a faculty presentation on Monday to the entire staff about the modified procedures, as well as all of the background related to SOPA. And so any technology purchase or request to create a free account that students will use will all be going through the business office, so that then we can funnel it through the proper channels. And we currently have 65 signed DPAs, which are
Nice.
data privacy agreements. So we feel like we're in a really great spot, and we started by tackling all of the big
biggies,
names
right,
that
sure,
really,
Skyward
transcend the
and-
entire school, Skyward, Schoology, things of that nature. And then, we're gonna trickle down to the free accounts.
Sure.
And focus on those last, but we also have asked teachers if they feel like they use something in their discipline that is a priority that we may not know is a priority.
Sure.
To let us know, and we've sent out a form so that we can then prioritize that in the month of May and make sure we have that ready to go before they leave for summer.
Right.
So how many are outstanding then? If you 65, that's impressive, but how many?
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. We've also asked staff to share, we feel we have a very comprehensive list. We've used this free tool to, gather information on what is out there that our staff and students are using, but we want to make sure that we're not missing something. So I can provide that number. I don't want to speak.
I think you got 3 or 4 currently
incorrectly.
just working with the attorney right now.
I sent 4 to the attorney this
Right,
week.
I just
yes.
saw that
Yeah.
this
Sounds
week.
like we're getting a briefing on it in the coming months anyway. So
Yes.
It is a huge undertaking, and the nexus of it all was a data breach in Rockford about 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago. So, there are over 35, the last I checked, and they were adding more, but there are over 35 points of personal information in the law, right? Like your voice, your biometric data, the enormity of it is just daunting. So thank you to Kristen and Mike for taking care of it.
Bridget's done a lot with it too.
And Bridget too. And you're the official privacy officer?
Mike Connors is the
Mike
official
is,
privacy.
right, doesn't come, you get a title, you don't get a raise, right? My poor tech director was like, great, another title, no more money. Well, thank you, Kristen, because it is, and thank Mike and Bridget, because I know exactly, I'm in those meetings, it's a lot.
It is a lot. I will pass it along.
Are you done?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, I'm done.
Assistant Superintendent's Report.
So good evening. Tonight I'll provide the Board of Education with financial information for the month of March, and that represents 75% of the fiscal year. So beginning on Board Book page 16, you'll see the monthly summary report. The total operating revenue for the month was $8,248,529, with 95% of this coming from property tax and CPPRT, 2% coming from federal and state reimbursements, and the other 2% coming from local revenue, which is primarily food service reimbursements from our satellite schools. We pay that money out, and then they reimburse us. The total operating expenditures for the month were $2,061,381, with 79% towards salary and benefits, 9% for purchase services, primarily food service again, and then 8% for special education tuition. In regards to the large amount of money we collected with property tax, from the spring collection, we're chasing, including debt service, we're chasing about $1.5 million. Currently compared to what we have budgeted for. So I do anticipate if the pattern continues as it kind of mirroring the fall, we should get hopefully most of that money by the end of the fiscal year. But with COVID, you never know. So that does make me still a little apprehensive. Moving on to the next page, the monthly financial statements. The fund balance summary shows that the district currently has a surplus in its operating funds of a little over $4 million, and again, that's due to receiving that large influx of property tax that we receive 2 times each fiscal year. So the surplus will start to decrease as the district spends money in the remaining 3 months of the fiscal year. It's a little hard to track in comparison to last year, just because some things have shifted, especially in regards to expenditures, as well as property tax, because they've expanded that collection period. But if we go to the next page, you'll see the summary of revenues shows that the district has received 92% of our budgeted revenue for the year. And this is the same exact percentage as it was last year. However, we were really conservative when we made this budget. And so the revenue, looking at the dollar amounts, is down this year by $505,988. So while the percentage is the same, we were conservative when we were doing the budgeting process. The summary of expenditures shows that the district has spent 71% of the budgeted expenditures for the year. And this amount is down from last fiscal year at this time, which was 75%. A small portion of that is due to shifting stipends around. We have the spring season now as well as the summer, and so those stipends are shifted to a different time frame. But just also in general, some of the expenditures are down because the expenditures are different with not having students in the building. And so I do think we will come in under budget with expenditures. And then always, as included for your information, is a statement of revenue and expenditure report for the month, as well as the student activity account summary for the month. Also this month, I've included 2 additional reports for your information. The first, as Dr. Skinkis referenced, is the COVID-related expenditures for fiscal year 21. That begins on board book page 35. We modified the formatting based on the feedback from the Finance Advisory Council. So this tracking document includes any expenses related to COVID-19 through this fiscal year. And it only captures right now through the 3rd quarter. So it will be much more comprehensive at the end of the fiscal year, and we'll report out in July when we are able to capture everything. So as you can see, it's organized by categories. So for example, you can see we've spent $56,604.73 on buildings and grounds, which primarily includes PPE and sanitation supplies. And also, I'm going to take a pause too. This doesn't include anything that we may have purchased June in preparation for this year, because that would have hit last fiscal year. So this is only comprehensive for this fiscal year. And then also another example, $66,560.25 on technology-related purchases. And I've tried to provide, more of a just comprehensive summary on how many webcams we've bought, or how many, document cameras, things of that nature, to help teachers be able to teach in the classroom, but also to the students that are at home.
Did we only have 25 students who had connectivity issues?
Yes, and we don't have 20.
Small number.
Yes, and we don't have 25 at any given time. We have 25 hotspots, and so that number can range from like 15. I think probably around 15 was probably the lowest, and then it can it's fluctuated to I think like 22 or 23.
That's great.
And if we had a bigger need, we would certainly buy more. So in total, so far to date, we've spent $602,497.11 for COVID-related expenses. And as Dr. Skinkis said, some of these expenses will be reimbursed through federal grants. Food service is a good example of that. We receive federal reimbursement for all of the money that we're spending towards breakfast and lunch for our students. Are there questions on that report before I move on to the next report? Okay. The next report is on board book page 37, and this is the facility rental report for the 3rd quarter. It only includes paid rentals. As the previous first 2 quarters of the year, it's very boring because due to COVID, we have only been able to rent out our pool for Academy Bullets when it's been permissible under the COVID-19 guidelines. And so you can see we've received in the 3rd quarter $2,976 in revenue. And year-to-date, we've received $14,848 in revenue. This is significantly down from a typical year. Just for reference, typically, depending on the year, we would bring in $80,000 to $100,000 in revenue for rentals. Certainly, then we would have more expenses related to that as well. But just to give the board some context as to how it compares to a typical year. And then lastly, for informational purposes, a facilities update, we do need to replace one of our tractors that Aramark uses for snow removal, turf maintenance, and mowing the grass. Current tractor is 15 years old and has been repaired several times, and so we will bring this purchase to the board next month for approval. And then lastly, the business office has been taking online registrations for summer school beginning April 1st. So those are up and running, and we encourage students to go ahead and register for that. And we have received confirmation that we will be able to provide free lunch for anybody in the community, but also the plan is to distribute those lunches as students are leaving for summer school throughout the summer as well. And again, that's through the same federal grant that we've received for this school year. And that concludes my report for this evening.
All right, is there any questions for Kristen? That was a lot to digest, $600,000, it's a lot of money.
I don't think we went on the same report, but I think it's helpful for us to have in the back of our heads,
Yeah.
too.
I can pull it up.
What, from March to July?
Yeah, the prior
COVID
fiscal,
money?
COVID expenses, prior fiscal.
Yeah.
year.
March to end of June?
I think
For
to her
some
point,
reason,
we
I had
did-
like 200 in my brain, but
I was gonna say the same thing, but, I mean, I think it's just kind of to keep it in context of the investment that's been.
I don't know that we can compare because it was really still unfolding in March and April.
well, I don't know if it's a comparison, it's like a rolling total, right?
Right, it's a rolling total, yeah.
And it's, what, the idea was that last year we said yes is the answer, what's the question?
Yeah.
Basically, we opened the checkbook for what we could do.
Yeah, last year we tracked it a little differently, and where the expenses would have come in last year, we didn't necessarily have PPE and things of that nature. There wasn't really anybody in the building.
Right.
Where a lot of the expense came from would be paying for stipends and staffing positions that we weren't necessarily utilizing, but
Right.
we continue to pay them. That's probably where the biggest expense came from last fiscal year.
Yeah, because we made considerable efforts to keep everybody employed.
Correct.
And then for the budget for this year, I know we budgeted well under rentals because of how we, what the scenario was, but we also heard earlier that the building is opening up more for rentals, so is that we've gotten 14,000 out of 80, what do we anticipate getting of the rest of the year?
10, right? 10 would be high.
Yeah, 10 would be high. I mean, I certainly do think we'll get some additional money from Academy Bullets during the fourth quarter. And then, I'm not sure, while we've opened up, we have to remember that we have our own sports going well into June, which we normally don't have, and we have a lot of activity going on. And so that really utilizes a lot of the facilities that would want to be rented out. So I don't know how many rentals we actually have scheduled at this time.
Do we budget half? I'm just trying to see how close.
No, we budgeted significantly lower than that. I'll pull it up really quick.
So the idea with the other thing with the lost revenue is that a lot of our main rentals come from that field house and gymnasium on Saturdays and Sundays. And so a lot of the travel baseball and travel AAU teams or junior Bulldogs, those teams that would use our facilities couldn't in their peak season. So we'll get some basketball rentals this summer, but most of the other sports that would rent our gym or our field house are now outside because the weather has changed.
Yeah. We only budgeted $6,000 for rentals.
Yeah, you're crushing budget, that's good. Well, that's when we thought the pool was gonna be closed pretty much indefinitely.
Correct.
Because that's a big one of our biggest nuggets
A lot
anyway.
has changed since when we created the budget in September.
All right, principals report.
All right, Tuesday is my favorite day. Why? Because I get to see you all. But secondly, it's PD day here at RB. I want to thank our teachers that presented last week. Special thanks to Ms. Wyzinski for presenting first slide, Mr. Franco, guided imagery, Mr. Helgeson, student engagement, and Ms. Phillips, our librarian, showcasing all of our library resources. Today, we wrapped up our second semester PD, and we spoke about post-pandemic practices that many teachers will consider keeping. Things that have been useful in the practice, such as keeping the camera on to engage the students, using the chat feature in the breakout rooms to engage those students, using Google Docs to allow students to ask questions and to see that live feedback, and of course, all the tools that we've used, too many to name, but I want the board to know that many of our teachers will be continuing using those tools and those practices that help engage the students come next year. So big shout out to all my teachers. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Kylie, for everything you guys have done.
So they're in the classroom and then they put a question in the comments?
Yeah,
while
you
they're
could
in the classroom? I mean, because I know, at work, we talk to each other that way, but... but the teacher doesn't really have time to answer those questions because they're engaging the whole classroom, right?
We've used in the past, like it's considered a back channel, right? So like you're watching a movie in class and. Oh, Jesus. An academically appropriate movie in class, okay? And yes, and kids have questions, right? Like you listen to Kristen, right? And you're like, oh God, I gotta write that down because I want to ask about that. Oh, I want to write down, I gotta ask about that. So then they put them in the chat or they put it in a running Google Doc or, I can't think. There's been some services that have come and gone, but back channel chats so that everyone has a voice and everyone doesn't have to wait till the end of the lesson to ask their question. So this is something that's been going on for 6 or 8 years,
I think
and
it's great.
the
I just wanted
pandemic
to get
has
an
really
idea how it
shined a
works.
light on the need for that to be happening more often in classrooms.
Maybe Michael and Lily can provide some perspective on that?
I mean, for me in all the classes that we've used the chat feature, it's when kids don't want to speak on the microphone and they just write the answer or whatever question they have in the chat. That's what I can think of.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I necessarily use it to ask questions because I have to wait to ask the question. I don't know.
I mean, the questions that I've asked in the chat feature have always been answered really fast.
Yeah, I don't use the chat feature too often. I don't.
Right,
But if we get a kid who wouldn't normally ask a question, that would ask a question in the chat, that's a win.
It's a win.
They do.
That's what it's really about.
Yeah.
It's about
Well,
taking
but
that
I
one
guess
kid who doesn't engage
Is that what
and
the
having
training
them
focused on?
engage,
Is that
right?
what you're saying, the training was?
Yes, it's part of it, of course, Yep.
But they can still ask questions in real time. I mean,
Sure.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
classroom I'm
Yeah.
at and the kids are on Zoom, they can still, as if they're there, they're just kind of like here in the
But-
screen.
but-
Yeah.
I think you said these are the post-pandemic practices we'd like to keep.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So it's sort of shifting some of that to off of Zoom and off, right? So it's called the back channel. It's called the back channel chat.
Okay. Well, I just know we've got this one-to-one initiative, everybody's got a laptop, and if we can continue to use that laptop and do a positive forward motion, I think that's and engage kids that might not be engaged. It's very positive.
Well,
And that-
before COVID, we had significant training on how to incorporate the Chromebooks and how, so that it wasn't an add-on to the lesson, but an integral part of the lesson.
Right, but I don't know if that was always the case, because when COVID hit, we certainly had I don't even know how to
Well, you
use it.
have your curve, right? Like you have your early adopters, you have the middle of the road people, the ones who will do it once you give them some training, and then
We should
are
ask our
not.
students, prior to COVID, were your Chromebooks an integral part of your class?
I don't know, the class and the teacher for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
If teachers that wouldn't have used them before, I don't like when there weren't Chromebooks, they didn't really use them. I think with our younger teachers, like in my English class, definitely was using Chromebooks all the time.
Oh yeah, English
Um,
is a big Chromebook class. Like
math,
we
yeah,
would
math.
never.
Until this year, I mean, the only time I used my Chromebook in math was like if I had homework.
Yeah, because
really
math's like the
But
flipped
now
classroom.
now for sure I use my Chromebook in math and like science.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be able to come back much better as a staff and as a student population from the experiences we've went through with this pandemic. I think teachers have picked up a lot of creative habits,
Absolutely.
and I think our students have realized the importance. And that's why the building administration is doing the executive functioning training for teachers, because so that when we bring students back next year, the effectiveness of planning out your day, you know, and then working that plan and trying to get more organized. And using that Chromebook as a central hub to store notes, to store projects, to communicate, group chats, those types of things. Yeah.
And I would make the argument that there's probably at least one teacher from every department, if not more, that has actually flourished, right? It's brought out their creativity and their,
Absolutely.
you know, they've used design thinking or other ways to solve the problems and made learning better.
I think that's part of what we talk about, how we catch up that lost learning, and this may be key into it. I mean,
Yeah, what's really been,
we
you know,
don't know what we don't know, right?
what's been positive with this experience is that many of our teachers and educators, you know, have had to write, you know, update and revamp, write their lessons and work through it. You know, and I think, you know, in this conversation, what I'm getting is that there's been lots of gains. You know, there's been digital competency gains. There's been communication gains from our student body and from our teacher. Of course, you know, right? We know COVID-19 has impacted in our school system, but there's been lots of gains made, you know, during this time as well. School culture and operations. The Race and Equity Committee will meet on Wednesday, May 5th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. I'll be sending the formal invitation at the end of this week or Monday. My next Talking with the Principal for Parents will be held in person Tuesday, May 18th from 9 to 10 a.m. The invitation will be sent in early May. My next office hours with the principal for students will be held virtually this Thursday, April 29th from 1:15 to 1:45. AP exams will be held starting the first week of May and run through the end of May. AP students can be excused from attending the regularly scheduled classes on any day they have an AP exam. I'll be sending information tomorrow to parents, you know, to make sure we got the right permissions.
Is that morning and afternoon?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, Michael, okay? I know you guys need the time to prep, to relax, to de-stress. I want you to focus on AP execution, and that's it, okay? Lastly, activities and athletics. Several summer athletic and activity camps will be held during this upcoming summer. Parents should visit our website for more information. We will be having athletic and activity summer camps this summer. More details to come. And that concludes my principal's report.
Hector, there was a question submitted for that next equity meeting. Can you send me the agenda and if there's any notes? So that I can share that with the board in a Friday update.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send it next Monday. Yep.
All right. More further questions, go to old business, life safety items, capital improvements, sustainability.
No updates. Kristen is working on with Berm. We met this morning on our annual, every Tuesday we meet as a facilities. Kristen and Berm, our new facilities manager, and they're working on getting the 2 electric car chargers installed for this summer, correct?
Correct.
So when is that? Like July?
Well, we hope to purchase them this week, and then we'll have a timeline on as to exactly when they'll be delivered. And we plan on doing the installation ourselves.
So update on their solar panels? My last opportunity to ask you that question.
At this point, we decided to hold off until at least next fiscal year, but we have met with several different consultants. There are different models in terms of how to fund and finance that. So we've done some research into the different models as well as the different vendors that are out there. Ultimately, that would have to be something that we go through the bid process for. And so we decided to hold off this fiscal year. We're coming up to close to a new life safety cycle where we do another 10-year study. And so in talking to our architect, they suggested it might make more sense to hold off until you do that initial study so that somehow you can try to incorporate that into a bigger plan and initiative. So we have done a lot of the research behind it, and that's where we're at in terms of the process.
So you're telling me to hold off again. It's all right. All right. Mission statement.
Board received the feedback from the community and the committee or the stakeholder committee. They were sent the information as well. The board received a list of comments. Do we want to turn it over to Mr. Jacobs? Or?
Yep. If he's willing.
Yeah, thank you. I think the number one suggestion or recommendation was to use the word community in lieu of taxpayers. And I think the argument was pretty compelling. Most comments were that, renters are taxpayers too, and I think since property taxes fund the school and not necessarily federal income taxes or whatever, I think that's what they're referring to. So that one to me seems like a pretty simple one. It was discussed last time already, whether that might be a better word. So I'm all in favor of changing that out, using community instead of taxpayers. So, maybe we just do them sort of one by one because I have a few other comments.
So I support that.
Anybody else have questions or changes to that?
So the second one, it would also potentially be, and again, I'm just sort of picking the ones that stood out to me. You may have additional ones afterwards, but there was a recommendation made to use the word intellectual in lieu of academic. And I'm certainly open to that. I think there's this being a high school, using the word intellectual is maybe a little more on point what might be an ideal outcome in a student as opposed to the broader academic. So I generally also favor that, but not necessarily strongly leaning one way or the other.
I still prefer academic.
I agree. I think, are we done? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think intellectual is a little bit more innate and academic is more mission-based to the school. That'd be my reason for it. Not to mention the alliteration in that sentence. I've grown fond of it, so.
It's just part of where it started too, yes.
I agree. I prefer academic.
What about you, Bill?
Yes, I agree. So I think we'll keep academic.
Yep.
Students, how do you feel about academic versus intellectual?
I like academic more.
Academic, okay.
I think since, like Mr. Jacobs said, for the mission statement, it makes more sense. But I do like that argument, our kids are more than just their grades. But, with the mission statement, that makes more sense.
Then the second to last, there was a, because we asked would there be words to add or some to delete. There wasn't much on the deletion front, but two stood out to me in terms of the adding. And the first one that I would like to see added is the word equity. And so the place where it might make sense is community committed to educational excellence, innovation, and equity. Because, as we all know, it has been long overdue. It is now finally in the focal, a focus of discussion. The school has already been very strongly committed to it and has a lot to show for it. So we may have had it in a prior version, and somehow I think it was removed, not for any specific reason, other than maybe just an oversight, but just based on the general state of things with the discussion in the community, I would love to actually see equity included.
So would you put it after, and community committed to educational excellence, comma, equity, comma, and innovation?
Exactly. I would probably keep the order the way it was: excellence, innovation, and equity at the end, but that's
As long as it's not in lieu of innovation.
correct.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Yeah, as long, like Deanna said, as long as we keep innovation in there.
Anybody arguing against its inclusion? Okay, and then the last one was, there's also a feedback point about curiosity or lifelong learning. So, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the idea of lifelong learning as a way to measure success of an educational institution, because you can do it with all these tests and all sorts of things. But if a graduate ends up being a lifelong learner, I think we've all won. And so this is, as an option, we could say at the beginning of the last sentence, as lifelong learners, comma, graduates are well equipped to be responsible members, and blah, blah, blah.
That's good.
I like that.
Wait, say that again?
It would, the beginning of the sentence changes to, as lifelong learners, graduates are well equipped to be responsible members of a diverse and ever-changing world.
Good transition.
It's, I mean, yeah, it's like one term. You could say, what's the school about? Lifelong learner, and, you know, that could be our one-word tagline.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just, I'm just pausing because I'm not sure we can start a sentence with a preposition, but I'm totally not opposed to it.
You can't end one, but I think you can start one.
I'm going to defer to you guys, who knows something about English.
Oh, I'm the worst at grammar.
So Tom, are you planning to send me one more draft of this with these new words edited in, and then we'll put it on for the May 4th?
Well, I think
Or
we
is the
should
board
vote it
looking to vote
today
tonight?
with those,
Yeah, I
because
think we
we've
should
got
vote.
our members here. I think we should vote this.
So can I read the
Final updated, amended?
the
Motion.
resolution, the motion as read and presented during the April 27th, 2021 board meeting, and I'll read it properly with all of the
Yeah, we
changes?
probably would say as presented, discussed, and revised.
Presented,
Discussed.
discussed,
And revised at the April 27th.
and revised during the, and
Yeah.
revised.
And Mona, if you would like, I mean, I have.
Did you write it all
I
out?
brought it, so here we keep academic and not use intellectual, but everything else in red is adopted.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, I'm going to read the new statement in its entirety, and then I will read the motion, okay? At Riverside Brookfield High School, we value character as well as achievement, a partnership of students, parents, teachers, administrators, and community committed to educational excellence, innovation, and equity. We deliver a rigorous and well-balanced education for the academic, artistic, athletic, social, emotional, and civic growth of each student. As lifelong learners, graduates are well-equipped to be responsible members of a diverse and ever-changing world. Now I'll read the resolution. The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, approves the adoption of the revised mission statement for Riverside Brookfield High School as presented, discussed, and revised during the April 27th, 2021 board meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Wes,
All right.
this is all in favor.
This is all in favor, right?
Yes?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
Nicely done, everybody.
Okay, and can
Well
I
done.
just say that since we spent a lot of time and energy and on this, I would love to see at least a half a dozen banners around the school telling everyone what it is, so that,
So are you asking the board if we all feel that way? Because you're not.
well, I'm saying, yeah, well,
Okay.
I'm putting it out there. I
Okay.
think that's a good idea.
I think the question is like, what's the communication plan going to be so that staff,
There you go.
so that
That's even
they
better.
can begin
What-
living this mission, so it just doesn't sit on a shelf, which
Right.
most mission statements do.
Right.
Like, how are they gonna live it? So I think that administration just needs time to kind of figure that out. Like,
Yes.
what's the best course of action so that it doesn't just become,
Right.
yeah.
So
They
then
gotta-
you're proposing to the board, then you would be asking, so would the board, is it the board's pleasure that we would then ask the administration how they might, you know, present this, work with this, you know, have present?
Yep.
Okay.
I also think it'd be a great idea to put it right on the agenda every month in a box, so that every board member can see it every time they look at the agenda.
I like that idea.
Well, every action you take, you should be able to then draw a direct correlation to your mission statement. Right, like every teacher walking down the hallway, you ought to be able to say, what did you do today that lives out our mission? Like, everybody ought to be able to answer that question.
And
But they need
it's
time
over
to create a
60-something
plan.
words now, and so they ought to be able to
That's what
find,
it is.
everybody in the organization ought to be able to find something.
They should.
One thing.
They should.
There's a lot of words there this time.
Pretty inclusive.
Yeah.
So then again, you'd be asking the board, how does everybody feel
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
keeping it on our board agenda? I'm not opposed to that, but again, the board is a voice of 7.
Sure.
Yeah, so they can
Anybody
figure it out.
opposed to that? See?
I mean,
Too long
can
for
I
a
just
t-shirt.
maybe one I mean, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for participating. And Wes, I know, like, I mean, at some point you and I worked on this together pretty closely,
Right.
and I'm super happy about it, including things like the opening sentence. But if there's one thing that could come out of this that might have something to do with how the administration presents it to the teachers, this happens to coincide with the light at the end of the tunnel of the most difficult year that this school probably has been through in its maybe recorded history. So, you know, the thing about, you know, words like innovation that we just said is very, I mean, it's a reflection of what the school and all its members have achieved together. And so, you know, I mean, it's all just words at some point, but it's real what we've all been through. And so if it can be celebrated as a distillation of what is possible even in the odds, you know, against all odds and so forth, I think it might be possible to actually leverage it as something truly celebratory and something that I like the idea of having it on the agenda so that the word innovation shows up every time in writing and is a reminder to all of us to hold ourselves accountable to that standard. So, sorry, it's a bit of a wordy endorsement of what you suggested.
It reminds us of what the school has done, because the school is not foreign to innovation. Remember, the students opened up a restaurant and ran it. It was called the Paw. Remember, the students had the School of Science. We had a school within a school. And they had their own little block. And we partnered with the zoo. And that was the C program. So innovation has come in waves through this school. And by keeping it here, doesn't mean it's brand new, and certainly innovation during COVID. But keeping it here reminds us of who we are. Because it's an R, not what we can be.
And I do think the next piece, and I know some of us around the table have said this previously, of setting the goals that track with this mission is really a more challenging, I won't say more challenging, but an equally as challenging piece, right? And so to the point about how it's communicated and, you know, marketed, if you will, I think some of that starts coming out as you talk about what are the real goals that this mission statement inspires. And as we talk about them here, I think we'll get a sense of what the highlights are and, you know, how we may or may not want to accent certain parts of it. So I think this is still a work, although adopted, and I think you know, Tom, your work on it, Wes, your work on it, everyone's work on it is incredibly admirable, but we still have work to do.
Yeah.
Right, well, I was going to echo that. 2 years ago, we started this as step one, and really, we started it 4 years ago as step one in a larger step of then the goals and then the strategic plan.
Yeah, it should
Because
all
that's-
align, because
that's
if
where-
it doesn't align, then one of them's off.
Right, and that's where we started with the mission, we're gonna go to the goals, and then there's the strategic plan, what are we doing? Because we gotta really watch the money 10 years down the line. You know, the lost learning's with us 11 years, right? The first graders are gonna be here, 12th graders in 11 years, right? Before it's gone.
Right, moving on.
Okay, TRS supplemental savings.
No update at this time. Chris is still waiting to hear get back from legal counsel.
All right, new business, IHSA membership 21-22 school year. What's that?
Well, one question was submitted on this, so if you read what I shared with you, the IHSA Financial Ad Hoc Committee has put in kind of like a sliding pay scale. So historically, we have not paid to be a member of the IHSA. This current fiscal year, FY21, we've already paid $2,100. They're doing $100 per sport that has a sectional. So we're already, this is actually, will be slightly lower, the fee that they're looking to collect next year of already what we paid, and then the year after that it goes down 1,000, the year after that it goes down another 500.
So that was I think I wanted to be clear that
Right.
historically, or at least in the most recent 10-year past, we'll say, I can't speak to long-term history with IHSA, but there's been no charge to member
Correct.
schools. This year they put in a fee scale. You know, in my opinion, IHSA had some very awkward moments in the last year where they provided some guidance to schools that didn't track with the IDPH guidance, and it was very clear to me that they were not a governmental entity, right? They were not necessarily aligned as a governmental entity. So I just wanted to kind of highlight it that $2,000, and it's not about that investment, but it is about taxpayer dollars going to IHSA, and I think I would ask Dr. Smetana just to kind of keep your ears and eyes open, and maybe it's Mr. Curtin as well, is IHSA now seeking federal funds or state reimbursement dollars? And again, because they're not a public entity, it's not particularly transparent. I just kind of put it out there for something to think on.
See, what's the converse, though? I mean, I don't know that we can't, it's an odd question, because I don't know that we can't not belong to them.
Well, they've
to be
got a monopoly on it.
right?
Yeah, no, they've got a monopoly on it. I know
What
there's
does this
always.
pay for?
What's that?
What does the $2,000 by 800 school districts pay for?
It's not, I mean, I went to their website and I did look up, and their board meeting indicated, due to their financial position, they decided they need to levy this fee for the next 3 years on a sliding scale. But their budget isn't there. Like, I don't know what type of cutbacks or program modifications they might have done the last year. They're not a particularly transparent organization.
They sent out some additional, I think I included in the email, just some of a summary of this stuff, and you could see
It's a monopoly.
there's some financial graphs and stuff, so I can forward those out in the Friday update if you'd like.
I'm just generally curious about it.
Should we ask if maybe the athletic director might want to explain why the move?
You know,
I think they might lose some money because there's no state tournaments.
Correct, so there was,
You know,
I mean, this is
in all
not,
sports and levels.
No, I understand that, but, you know, everyone is kind of managing within their budget, and they have a ready audience to say, oh, now we need $2,000 from you this year and next year. And it's, I would just like us to be generally mindful if they're gonna suddenly backfill that gap as well with other federal dollars, what's their eligibility? I think it's just it's more of an academic question than an actionable question. I just,
we'll keep you posted if we hear anything. I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
And I think to answer Bill's, or to piggyback on Bill's comment and Laura's question, historically, we did not pay to be a part of the membership. That is the only competitive membership for state series.
Right.
And all the gate revenues, like when you host playoff games, regardless of the sport, regional, sectionals, all that stuff, that money goes back to the IHSA.
Okay.
So even though you're hosting it at your home site,
Yeah.
right, you identify before the match, hey, we need 3 security person, okay, here's what we pay security people for an IHSA event. the hosting site gets like 10% of the ticket sales. Everything else goes back to, so when you look at that lost revenue throughout the state of not having March Madness, of not having the football playoffs, of not having anything last spring, nothing this fall. I mean, you only had sectionals this fall, but that's why they did the 100. There wasn't, they have no revenue stream coming in that usually they offset the cost with. So I understand what Ms. Aylis is saying, like it makes sense of why you're asking for this request, but we also want to make sure they don't end up getting $1 million or something.
And then they
from
keep
the
asking.
state, and they keep getting their, right, because then it would be cash flush or overflush.
I mean, the it's an important organization. It keeps rules and regulations and tries to keep it fair and safe for all students, but it's something that's tacit. We don't even think about it until all of a sudden we got a request,
Sure.
you know? And so it's just funny that it came up, you know? We couldn't imagine having sports among high schools without them there
Well,
to
I
make
think
sure
that it's a sliding
safe.
scale too,
Yeah.
is also a good thing. That goes down in 1,000 next year and an additional 500 a year after.
Yeah.
Just something to keep our eyes on, so that if they do end up getting some federal reimbursement, we would say, well, do you still need our 2,000, or is that being reduced?
I think their enrollment
That's all you're
numbers are a
asking.
little
Yeah,
jammed
that's it.
up. They should have another category there, 3,000. Those
Yeah,
guys should pay
we're
more.
really on that cusp, aren't we?
Right, I mean, you know, what makes us the same as a 4,000 person school?
Right.
I mean, that, you know.
Some of these places too, like for the basketball tournaments, boys and girls, they have to be booked well in advance, and I'm doubtful they got any type of refund money
Yeah.
that they put down there, because everybody got screwed out of COVID. It seemed like for big events, they didn't think about event cancellation insurance, and if there wasn't anything that would cover COVID. So I think that probably plays somewhat of a role too.
I Googled it. It says 75% of their revenue comes from ticket prices. So they probably lost a boatload just in there.
Sure.
Who would have ever thought you needed to have cancellation?
Insurance,
Insurance,
for
right?
game basketball.
Yeah, who would have
And then
found
those
it?
insurance guys don't pay.
Yes, we don't pay.
All right, so that's a motion, right?
Yeah, I'll take care of that. The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the IHSA membership for the 2021-2022 school year as presented in the April 27th, 2021 board agenda packet.
Second.
Thank you, Gina.
Second by Mrs. Sierra, and that's a roll call vote.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas? Yes. Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes. All right, matters for closed session, personnel, purchase, sale, lease, real property, probable imminent pending litigation, collective negotiation, school safety. This is another chance for visitor statements. Discussion items requested.
Wes, can I ask one question that I should have asked earlier tonight? But it's to Michael and Lily. Thank you for filling out that survey. That was incredibly helpful. One question that I have is, when this whole idea started, we were having a number of discussions about whether there should be one student advisor or two. And I think if anything, and there's different models, different schools do it differently. We somewhat organically ended up with you two, and again, thank you for your service. I think it's all really positive, obviously. But what I'm specifically curious about, do you have an opinion on whether there was a difference by the two of you doing this together, whether there was a lot of exchange between the two of you, or whether it didn't necessarily matter as much? Because I think we could make arguments for or against, but I was really curious to hearing from you directly.
No, I loved having two members.
Yeah, I think having two is the way to go, because Michael and I are from like different friend groups too. Like we don't really hang out outside of the board meetings. So it's nice to have like different opinions of different students. And I like how it's a girl and a boy, so it's like two separate.
No, and even with like during board meetings, like if I have a question about something or like I've run out of ideas to say during a report or something. Lily might mention something that I didn't think about, so I think it's better to always have two.
Yeah.
Just, and even like, when you're getting thrown into this position, like if you're coming into a senior and you're just by yourself
Yeah, it's a
among
lot of
everybody
pressure
here,
for one.
but then knowing that you have someone else. That's
There's sort
also-
of an intimidation factor probably to some
Yeah.
extent, right? When
Yeah.
you're in
But
front of
just
cameras.
having another student next to you is just makes it better.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you blazing the trail, right? It wasn't an easy year for anyone, and you guys came in and did it well, so thank you.
Yeah.
Still have 2 meetings left.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. I wasn't sure.
Not there yet.
Okay, Ramona, calm down.
Sorry.
All right, consideration of items for future meeting. We've got House Bill 7.
I believe that recently got voted down, if I'm not mistaken.
It did.
No, that's too bad.
Did.
Okay, closed session.
The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois enters the closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sierra. It's a roll call.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Smithing?
Yes.